wait for 5 more minutes. Watch. There's some people out. Alright, I'm excited to get started. Usually when I start talking about esports, I cannot stop. So I want to need every minute that we can get. Thank you for coming out to the session where we're talking about esports. And really for me, this is about engaging students in a different way, meeting students where they're at. Young people are doing this incredible thing around esports where a whole industry is really booming, and now all the adults are trying to jump on the train. And I think that we need to figure out how we do that in education as well. So it's very exciting. So I've pulled my entire team with me into this journey around esports, and I have 2 people out here with me today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Demetrius Roberts. I'm the Director of STEM and Educational Technology for the Chester County Intermediate Unit. I have with me my colleagues. To my right, this is Ashley Ford. She is the, let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can do this. She is the Career Innovations Coordinator.
Ed Innovations.
All right, Career Education Innovations Coordinator. And then the back, my colleague, let's see if I can do this. Dr. Patricia Binkley is the STEM Services Coordinator.
Yes.
All right, got it. Yes. So we opted for simplified names, and then they get complicated with long titles. But so we're really excited because we're finding that there's just so much to learn, so much to do, and as soon as you start talking to a young person about esports and video games, they light up. And I had an opportunity to see that in person, talking to groups of students that said, this is our way to fit in school, this is what we're excited about, this is what we can do, this is what we want to do. And I think when students are that excited about something or that interested in something, I think we have to use that as a way to get them excited about the core things that we know are important that we teach every day at school. And so for us, this is what esports is really all about. So let's take a step back and just by show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the world of esports? How many of you would say if you had to define esports, you can define it? How many of you have kids? Your kids playing video games? Kids playing video games? A little bit? So it is a booming world. It is complex, it is complicated, it has many strands, many things for us to be scared about, but I really think a lot of things for us to be excited about. So in short, for those of you who had your hand down, when I asked if you could define what esports are, essentially I'm using it as a noun right now. It's competitive video game play, in short. And it ranges for what those video games can look like. It's oftentimes teams competing against each other in video game play. Oftentimes online, but growing in person. And in fact, I'll talk about how we're supporting esports. We're actually really in favor of the in-person aspect of gaming because the online piece still has some fears for schools. And we're helping schools to navigate some of those fears and some of those laws and schools' responsibilities if kids are online and they're communicating and things don't go right. So won't get into a lot of that, but I'll talk a little bit about how we're supporting schools. We'll touch on that. So in short, when I first started talking about esports to my bosses and saying, hey, I think this is something we need to do, they weren't really sure of like the scope of esports. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, esports are really big around the world. It is huge. There's some crazy stats out there. Some of the stats I'm going to show you in this video have grown. But for those of you who don't understand what's happening in the world of esports or happening with young people, young adults and companies, it's a big, big, big deal. So here's a little video to give you a little idea of how big it is in the world and what our kids are dipping their toe into all by themselves.
I know what you're thinking. Professional video games? Seriously? Well, yeah, this is serious business. Get that image of a soda-chugging, frozen pizza-eating geek who never leaves his... I know what you're thinking. Professional video games? Seriously? Well, yeah, this is serious business. Get that image of a soda-chugging, frozen pizza-eating geek who never leaves his bedroom out of your head. Esports is the real deal like Evander Holyfield. Don't believe me? Doesn't matter. I got the facts to prove it. You may think it's about mashing buttons at random. No! Esports has got human reflexes fast enough to teach Usain Bolt to fingers without getting off the blocks. It's got enough fans to make the NHL slip and slide. It's got more drama than an episode of Game of Thrones. Tell me more. Okay, well now that I've got your attention, let me break it down for you. Huge tournaments are held all over the world with audiences of up to 113,000 people in attendance, and that's dwarfed by the online viewership, with some tournaments reaching 34 million viewers via platforms such as Twitch. Sponsors are getting involved, pouring in boatloads of cash. That's a real measurement, right? Esports is set to become $1 billion industry by the end of 2017, but the prize money is already turning these teenagers into multi-millionaires. So what do they play? A lot of different games. Esports is an all-encompassing term for a variety of games, from multiplayer online battle arenas, or MOBAs, like League of Legends, to first-person shooters like Counter-Strike. So where's it going, you say? Virtual reality and all those bigger, better things! So why haven't I heard of it? Because you've been living under a rock. So follow Sheenan's guide to awake from your slumber and get ready to join the esports generation.
So in my role in Chester County, I'm about 45 minutes away from Philadelphia. Grew up in the city. In the city of Philadelphia, we have a professional esports team that plays a game of Overwatch called the Philadelphia Fusion. A few years ago, they were purchased for $50 million. They're a small little team that started by themselves. Comcast purchased them for $50 million, and now they're in the process of building that stadium you see below, right next to where the Philadelphia Eagles and the 76ers play. And so those things were happening, and I was like, hey, this crazy thing are happening, and our young people are playing these video games and saying they want to go out into this world, but then there's all this other stuff happening. And then in Pennsylvania, we were fortunate enough to have something else happen. So last year, how many of you heard of this? So last year, I'm going to butcher his last name, but I think it's Kyle, begins with the G. I think he's now 17 years old. And I don't know if he still actually goes to the school. I bet he does. He was attending the Pottsgrove School District, and he runs in the Pottsgrove School District, and everyone, please correct me. But he participated in a Fortnite competition, and he won $3 million. And so it made a lot of headlines in our area, in the east side of the state. And then a lot more people start calling me and asking, like, what was this esports stuff you were talking about? This is real? So it is real, and the thing is, our kids are navigating this world by themselves. Not only the gameplay, which gets me somewhat excited, but there's all the other stuff that you see that's happening around the profession. It's the online, it's the social media aspect, it's the business, creating business models off of it. It's the kids are getting sponsorship. So your son or daughter in their room playing a video game and they're really good at it, they may receive an email or a phone call that said, hey, would you take some money to talk about my product? Which is really awesome, but kids having to navigate that by themselves, I think is scary. And I think when we start talking about real world skills that we want to teach our students, this is the perfect place to do it, because real world is hitting them right in the face. And what are we doing as educators to help them? So that gets me excited. It's real. It was like this happened, and all of a sudden people started saying, all right, we should start thinking about doing this. I told the kids when they came to my office and said, can we start an esports team? I said, we're not ready for that. And the kids went and did it by themselves. And so my narrative has been, we should bring them in the comfort of school. And so why we're starting to do that. So I was happy to have Ashley here, because she, on our team, she's really working with us around what we're doing with career readiness, and all around how we preparing these kids for jobs. And we all know by now, I'm sure, that STEM and computer science jobs are increasing, I think, at a rate of 9% in the state. We know colleges and universities are growing esports programs, and they're also interested in the skills that kids are acquiring through esports programs, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. We're seeing studies that show us, hey, you want more girls in STEM? It's not a coincidence that girls who play video games are 3 times more likely to go into STEM careers and STEM fields, computer science fields. We know jobs, and that 71% of the jobs over the next 10 years, the new growth in jobs will be around STEM and computer science. And we have unfilled jobs today. That's only increasingly growing. And so starting with that as a platform for what are we really trying to do with esports is, we have a lot of kids interested in video games, which require a lot of computer science know-how to make it happen. How are we then strategic about how we put those two ideas together? And we could do that. We can't do that if the kids are by themselves doing this. And so that's been our narrative. And for those of you thinking about going down the route of esports, I think this is a great place to start. It's been really successful for us, for not only our board at the CCIU, but our school boards for the other districts in our county. And at any point, if you have questions about that, please throw your hand up. I did want to show you a little bit of this. So what we did as that campaign for us at the IU for our board, which is made up of individual school board members from all the districts in our county, we put together a presentation similar to this, but we wanted to have some visuals for it. So we started going around in our own organization to people who work in our IT department, for people who work in our communications department, and we said, hey, are any of you playing video games? Do you play? And what happened was actually surprising. A lot of the people who worked in our tech department, they said, well, the reason I have this job is because I grew up playing video games and I was interested in technology. And so we actually did this little campaign to even take it one step further. So you have a link to this presentation. I'll show you just a couple clips of this video that we did, and you'll have access to it. I think it was a really good idea. And I show this to schools as well when we start talking about esports, when they're asking about support. So here's just a little bit of it.
I gamed pretty much my whole entire life, still game today. And because of that, I was very interested in technology. And because I was interested in technology, it kind of pushed me into this career.
I really enjoy gaming because I get inspiration from it. It's a great escape. But in that escape, in that world, I get to enjoy all of the choices that the game designers have made, like fonts, colors, symbols that they get to use for different items in the world, and I get to bring that back to my career.
Science and iterative design and collaboration, everything that I do in the tech world is all revolved around gaming. So I have made some of the most incredible partnerships and friendships through our shared gaming experiences. It also has brought me to explore wonderful new technologies on a daily basis, and not only with how it applies to fun, but also education.
So there's a few more. So my narrative around that is when I started talking to people, and I encourage you to do this with people you know game or people that work in your technology departments. Our narrative has been, why does this happen by luck? Why is it that these people playing video games navigated these directions by themselves? Did they have anyone to steer them that direction? And a lot of times the answer is like, not really, no. It's something I did on my own. And that's what we're looking to change. So we want to be intentional about those connections. That if a kid says they're interested in video games, then how do we take that interest and turn it into interest in something they can do in school? And so that's really been our big narrative around esports. So what I kind of want to go through the rest of the presentation is this: what does it look like in schools, from the clubs to the games teams are playing, to the models of clubs to allow for lots of different engagement points, from in the classroom, out of the classroom. How people connect in project-based learning to kids' interest in esports, what sort of activities go with what's happening in the clubs, other challenges beyond the game, and then a connection to people who are already working in professions either related to computer science or esports. A lot of different connection points for you to think about. And if you want more information on one, we can talk a little bit more about it here. Or even afterwards, or love to engage with you outside of this room as well. All right, so a couple of different things, and I'm almost done my portion of talking here, but a couple of different things. When I first started talking about esports, a lot of people get trapped on the idea of, we don't have enough time to teach our kids reading in school. Like, how are we going to fit this esports thing in? The actual esports activities itself for schools is happening after school, primarily everywhere. And then because you have this after school club, because you have this excitement happening after school, that could lead to some engaging ways or some options for kids to show their learning maybe differently than how you're already doing it. So this is not a replacement. Esports itself is not a replacement for anything during the school day. And the first time I was introduced to esports in California, I had the opportunity to go to a high school match. It was mind-blowing for me because I got to actually see it happening, after school teams playing each other, and then a whole bunch of other things around it. But my colleagues who I was there with, they were so hung up on the idea that we can't detract from what we're doing during the school day. So this is after school primarily. So schools are starting clubs and aligning themselves to these big organizations who are supporting schools in that. Here are three big ideas or three big players in that world. We're a big fan of NASEF, that's who I have a close relationship with, but we're definitely have talked to Play VS and High School Esports. I don't want to go too much about them, but they're larger organizations that can help you start clubs if that's something that your school is thinking about doing as a way to build this engagement and build esports in your school. Another one to quickly get by, game titles or that we've been working with schools on and talking to them about range from traditional sports titles like Madden, NBA 2K, FIFA, and NHL, but then some big other ones, Rocket League, which is my favorite of them all, League of Legends, which is the #1 video game in the world, Overwatch, which is what the pros play, and they also play a lot in college, and then obviously Fortnite, which is the baby on the block, which a lot of young kids are really excited about Fortnite. So there's just some titles and ways to get kids excited. If you're not familiar with those titles, obviously probably Fortnite. What we've been promoting, if you're thinking about this, we really focus on E4Everyone games. So that would be Rocket League and the sports titles. League of Legends, Overwatch is more team rated. I think Fortnite falls into that team rated category as well. And so this is what really gets me excited. So this is where we really start the meat and potatoes. So what's that esports in education? So NASEF, the organization that I was introduced to earlier on, they started supporting schools and starting esports clubs, and they said to schools it has to be more than just the video games. So you see the video games and the players in the middle, but you see everything else around it. From the strategists who are thinking of the gameplay, how we playing other schools, what the strategy is going to be, which, think about that for a second. Football team, who's in charge of the strategy? Coach is an adult, right? Basketball team, who's in charge of the strategy? Coach. Esports world, the kids are empowered to make decisions. So we talk about decision making, right? Why is it so hard for a kid to choose what college they're going to go to? How often they're allowed to make important decisions? And so esports, it's about the kids' world, right? They're in charge of the strategy. Outside of that, you have people creating content. So you're talking about streamers, you're talking about YouTube, you're talking about Twitch, right? You have one part of your club that just manages all that, which is a whole learning experience all by itself. So in the clubs itself, they're doing all those other things that lead to actual jobs and actually making money, which, by the way, the kids may be trying to do this by themselves, and that could be somewhat dangerous as well without the support of adults. You talk about entrepreneurial opportunities, so kids creating websites, right? They're marketing, they're going to get sponsorships for their teams, they're going to work with business developers to figure out how do we help take our school to the next level. And then the other exciting part are organizers, people organizing the event, students working with the tech departments on what technology they need to have in order to be successful. And the beauty is, in a traditional model of what this looks like in the after-school program, many of those jobs would fall to adults. But these are things that the kids are already trying to do on their own that really apply to 21st century jobs, where it's so much online. And I'll talk about in a second how business partners in our area in Chester County, they're interested in the kids are doing this because the older people who are running those businesses, they don't understand social media. They don't know what Snapchat is. They can't figure out why people are watching TikTok.
In reference to this diagram, is that reference just to that diagram, or is there a place where maybe at that link there's more of a description of those various?
So if you go to their NASEP's websites, they're a little bit more descriptive out, but really this is their concept for a club. And then they kind of explain out what that looks like. And then it's even better to see maybe how that plays out in some of the challenges and activities that they push kids to do. And so they do a little bit of work with schools like that on the West Coast, and it's grown here on the East Coast. And this is actually where, the work I do to support esports, this is where I've been spending my time, is supporting schools. And hey, you're starting a club, just don't focus on the gameplay. Let's focus on all this other stuff, which has some really good real-world learning opportunities for students. That's a good question. Yes?
As you guys have been doing your research, like, have you come across anything indicating that, like, PIAA is going to start sponsoring sanctioned sports? I've been hearing some rumblings about that, but I guess there's some talk about maybe it's not the most appropriate place for this to fall, so
I've
curious your thoughts.
been telling people the kids are too smart to ever let that happen. In high school and college. So college, there's a bunch of colleges playing, and it's one main reason why it can't even be a college sport. Anybody know why? Kids are making money. And the kids are saying, wait, whoa. We're not going to let what's happening to the basketball and the football players happen to us. I'm already making money. I'm already getting paid by this video game developer to talk about their game on YouTube. Why am I going to go to college and then have my money taken away? And so that's happening in college, and it's happening in high school. As you can see, the kid from Pottsgrove, if he was paying PIAA and he won $3 million, he would have to get kicked off his high school team. So I'm actually on the side of the kids. Since you guys are ahead, you created this. Don't let the old people ruin it and take it away from you. So that's been my opinion. And I think that's why those three big companies I showed, NASEP, High School Esports, and Play VS, they're important because it gives them the power to facilitate that play, and they're allowing the kids to go make money, be online personalities, write your blogs, unbox video games, whatever it is you want to do associated with esports. We want to support you to do that, but hey, use your reading, writing, listening, and speaking skills that you're learning in school. And oh, by the way, if you're making money, you should probably start learning how to manage that in math class a little bit. Some others. That's a good question. Any other questions? Yeah?
I've seen a lot of schools, especially towards the West Coast, that are starting to run like the Rainbow Six Siege and CSGO and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you in that, like, teen and unders, but like, are you seeing any schools in Pennsylvania that are starting to run those mature rated games?
Not yet. A lot of schools in Pennsylvania are now starting to dip their toe into League of Legends and Overwatch because the colleges are playing it, and that's kind of our methodology. Is like start with E for everyone, and now we're trying to introduce, actually right now we're introducing schools to like Harrisburg University. By the way, Harrisburg University, I'll get to their slide with them in a second. They have like a top 5 esports program in the country, little Harrisburg University. And so we're like, hey, Harrisburg University is playing Overwatch and League of Legends. Kids are saying they would like to go to college and do this. So the high schools that have started already. They're like, okay, we'll allow that team, but nothing more yet. I haven't heard anyone playing any of those games. So the question is, some of the games are violent, right? And I think that is an issue. But I also think there's this other issue of what you may see as violent as just you're watching a screen may be a lot different than what you're actually doing when you play it. And just for example, the game Overwatch. Anyone in here play Overwatch? Right, awesome game. It's an awesome game. It's a 6v6 player game, and you're required to choose between kind of 3 different types of players. Well, one of the types of players, their role is a healer, and the healer shoots medicine essentially at their own teammates when they get, when they lose points. So as an adult, you're like, oh my gosh, this kid is shooting a gun at this other kid, and you're like, no, he's just shooting Tylenol to his teammate. It's not what you think. So it's this thing that happens too with adults, that what they're seeing on the screen, you don't know what's happening, but you may think it could be violent, but the kids are like, no, this is not violent at all. Like, it's almost laser tag for the kids. So it's kind of that evolution, but that conversation does not make sense if you're playing Call of Duty and the player clearly has an M16 and throws a grenade at someone. It's not the same. So like the fantasy sort of games are working in Pennsylvania from my experience.
Well, I think you really said this in the beginning. These kids are doing it anyway. At least now there's adult supervision to some degree. I agree with everything you're saying. I think this model is a fantastic model for kids or for schools to start basing this off of. But there's also that team building right there in that whole scenario, communication. These are all things that we're trying to teach kids to do, just in a different fashion. And it's sort of easily grasp it in esports than necessarily a classroom sometimes.
Yes, that's what gets me excited. So if I were to go into my background story in this, I am a part of the National STEM Ecosystem Movement. And we went to California and they took us to a high school matchup. And I'm very open-minded thinking, so I was like, all right, this could be cool, esports, all right, like I like to game, but like when it's so serious, it seems like, oh, it might be a little too nerdy for me, I don't know, like we'll see. So, I experienced it, but I also got to talk to kids. And it was the stories of the kids, but then it was also, as I'm watching the gameplay, there's a cheering section, but then it was like kids walking around with video cameras. There was a kid on the balcony that was like doing broadcasting on Twitch, and there was all kids, and the adults were like standing or sitting around the room. And like, I'm in California, and I just had this aha that said, if these kids are learning how to work like this together, and we were literally like 20 minutes from Cupertino, I'm like, this is why Apples and Googles are here, and they're going into jobs. These kids are going to go into those jobs. If I don't figure out how to create this, or at least support this for kids in my own community, then what am I doing? And so that's what that whole environment of kids being the lead, they're being in charge, they're working together, is a little bit of this too. And what you just said about the cooperation part really gets me excited. When you talk about a game like Overwatch, which 6-on-6, so you need all 16 members to be in constant communication with each other, what the strategy is. You're moving here, I'm moving there. It's actually really fun to watch. To see kids do that.
I mean, you could literally say to people like, okay, we have team building sports that physically hurt people, then we have team building sports that, bring people together and
yes.
have a good time.
Yeah, and I come from the world of football, and I say, same thing. If we can play football, we can do this. And there's a lot of good things. So many different things to get into this. But like the teams, they're doing mindful exercises. They're trying to restrict the kids from just playing all the time, because that's not good too. They're even doing like cool finger stretches, which was at first I was making fun of when I went to see it live. The players in the back in their little locker room, they're stretching their fingers, and I'm like, "You're serious? Your finger stretch before you play a video game?" But they're organizing it, and they're trying to protect the kids. So I think that's a part of the conversation. Yeah.
What kind of platforms do they use for these?
Platforms as in.
PC or the console?
Yes, PCs primarily. Yeah, if you're any sort of serious about it, PC. But if you're dipping your toe into this and you really are focused on the educational purpose, you don't have to go PCs. You can go consoles. How we're seeing schools start this now, and we're really supporting, is like as schools buy new computers or up their computers for their like graphics arts programs, or some schools have like media programs where kids are editing videos. It's like buy computers for that by day, but then those computers can double as gaming computers in the evening. And some of the games that schools are playing, like Rocket League is such a big one, that's agnostic. Like you can play Rocket League on anything for the most part, and so you could get away with having a console. But even the tech departments that we're engaging with, tech departments like the PCs because they have more control over them, and the consoles they have less control. So there's another way around it. All right, like I said, I can talk about this stuff all day. So what's happening during the day? Ashley, you want to talk about?
All right. So I come from a completely different perspective. I am not a gamer. I might like pull out my phone and play like the candy games, stuff like that. I think I got out of it when I was a kid because I tried to play that Bond Nintendo game with my brother, and every time I would spawn, he would shoot me, and so like I just gave up. I'm like, I don't even get to move around. So I come from more the educational side, and seeing the impact on the students is just huge. So outside of actually playing the games, this picture is from our Technical College High School, which is our CTE program that we have in Chester County. So these kids actually built their own gaming console computer. So they got all the components together. They worked together as a team to figure out, well, which components do we need? What's the best price? Where should we go? You know, do we need this powerful or can we get away with this level? And then they actually put it together and built their own gaming console. And they're not just using it for gaming. We have 3D printing, so they use like Blender to create their own creations and then print them out. But they actually got to see from the ground up what goes into building a PC for gaming. So this was kind of like a project-based learning experience for them. And the build itself didn't actually take that long. I think it was like an hour and a half. And what's great is this can be a continued learning experience because as parts break or they wear out or they need new parts over the year, they can be swapped in and out of the PC. You can take it apart and troubleshoot, figure out what's going on, rebuild it. So our kids really enjoyed that, and they loved sharing about what they did with others. So they got to talk to the administrators and share what they did. People come in, and we're actually going to be at the playground tomorrow. If you want to check it out, I'll have the gaming computers there and can share you a little bit more about what they built. But this is also great for our Genius Hour. So our kids that have these interests, we can pull this into the classroom and kind of help support them. Some of the ways we can do that, just some easy ways from the elementary up. These are some great, easy programs that you can get into on the computer to start trying to design some of your own games. We like CoSpaces because you can also do AR, VR. So yes, you can do it on the computer, but you can also, put on your VR goggles and kind of immerse yourself in the game. Bloxels EDU, even for our littler kids, they have like physical, tangible pieces that they can move around to create their own little pixel characters, and then they can build their game and test it on the computer before they actually get to play it. Microsoft has a bunch. They have Microsoft Make Code, which is their own coding program, and it works with a bunch of different things: Microbit, Minecraft, Lego Mindstorms. So again, kids are moving away from just being consumers of the game and starting to get more into that creation mode. So, you saw those different ecosystems. For myself, I never would have wanted to be in a gaming club because I don't want to be the one playing the game. But if I got to create, if I got to design my own world, I would have loved that. I mean, I read a lot. I love living in worlds that are not my own. And if gaming could have done that for me, I definitely would have been more of a gamer as a kid. So, the kids can really kind of step out of their own world and into a new one that they have a lot more control over. So if you haven't checked any of these out, we have the links there and you can go in and play. Most of these are like the freemium ones, like CoSpaces. You can get the free version and play around, but the really powerful stuff is the part you have to pay for. Same thing, Bloxels, you can buy the little kits and then go from there. And then Microsoft, depending on what you may already have access to, you can do everything in Make Code and actually see it on the screen. But then if you have the devices, then you can actually connect it and kind of take it out of the computer and off the screen. And then one of our big ones associated to that little ecosystem chart that we saw is we're trying to look at beyond the game, or these, what are we calling it now? build your own brand. Build your own brand challenges and connecting to the career. So we're having a tournament, and Dee's going to talk about that in a minute. But we're also giving these challenges to our students. So beyond playing the game and seeing which team's going to win Rocket League or NBA, these are some additional challenges. So we're looking at art in gaming. Build a logo and brand your club. Fan art, right? You know, you have the kids that just love to draw. You can create fan art based on your favorite game. Marketing materials to recruit local partners. So reaching out to businesses, getting them to sponsor your team. And then again, sharing your information. A lot of times we get asked, well, how do we present this to parents? How do we present this to the school board? Make the kids do it, right? Have an esports information session so the kids need to do the research about what are the facts and the details that we can share with our community to show how much and how important esports is to us and how we can kind of, you know, take responsibility for ourselves, even if it is a more, you know, violent game. Well, let's look beyond that. What are we actually learning? Team chemistry, social media. So we're asking our kids to create a website that has a blog and some sort of social media presence, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and they have to post a number of, you know, whatever, it's a tweet or a Instagram post promoting their club and sharing kind of what they're doing. A hype video, right? Again, trying to build the community in their club. And yeah, leveling up, so fundraising, getting sponsors. So again, trying to branch out, what can we get into beyond, and tying that back into our careers. Because, you know, it's like professional basketball. Only so many people are going to make the team. Only so many esports are going to win that $3 million Fortnite championship. But what other careers can you get into that still involve, you know, the gaming industry?
Yeah, so just, let me probably stay here for a second. So just wanted to tap on just, there's so many entry points that are exciting about this. So every time I start talking about this, we're finding different people want to jump onto it. So locally, we have a local gaming center that actually the gaming center, the owner of the gaming center, his real business is they build computers and support, for the people that they sell the computers to, they support, they call it computer doctors. They support local businesses and the computers they need to run their business. Well, he, like a lot of people who get involved in computer science and STEM technology, he was a gamer. He wanted to create a gaming center. And so we started collaborating Level 13, and there he wants to bring kids in. I want them to show them how we're building these computers. I want them to know how we're running you know, internet network. So the businesses are interested in this group of kids who are interested in gaming, but really technology as a whole, as a way to, again, grow their interest in computer science. Locally, we have a company, Flux, which some of you may know about, who they host all sorts of things there. It's essentially a big makerspace. They want to be able to host these sorts of events. They do tons of things there, including they have their own media company, and so they're interested in seeing what the kids do in that world. Emerald Foundation is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They have a large esports grant, and they're looking to support schools. Locally, our Economic Development Council, Workforce Development Board, businesses are trying to figure out who are these kids doing this in technology, and that conversation around social media came from this group that said, our business people are saying we need to be around young people because they're using social media in ways we don't understand as adults. We'd love to know how young people are socially connecting to each other in their world. Again, using Snapchats of the world and some of the other social media platforms. And then there's a range of colleges who are doing a lot of cool things. Starting their own programs, so they're looking for kind of a feeder system. But then also, like a Harrisburg University is one of few colleges that actually now has a esports Bachelor's of Science degree, which is really awesome because when you graduate with that degree, you'll have a esports BS degree. So it's going to be fun for some kid to have that on their resume one day. Say, I have a BS in esports. But their program, when you talk to them about it, it's really about that ecosystem model. And they created their program not because of that, but they see that's where it's headed. They see all these connections between people online, people playing video games, people in this place, and there's so much business and money to be made that we need to teach our young people how to do that. And again, Harrisburg University is one of the best top esports program teams, and now they have this program to now go with it. Yeah. So we have time for more questions, but I also did want to put this on here too. I'm in Chester County, Pennsylvania, but we're working with Flux, who has this really cool space. So we wanted to host a tournament this year. We contacted Flux, who actually the person who's director of that used to work with us. He left us to go there, but we reached out and said, hey, can we have a tournament at your place? And he said, sure. So as we were actually trying to grow this tournament and we're reaching out to schools to see who wants to be involved, we heard from a lot of schools, people were saying like, we're not sure what we want to do around these sports yet. Like we're still having this conversation. And so we created, we're going to have an esports education summit, and we're inviting people there who already have clubs and teams and that are doing all these things to talk about the actual logistics of how they're doing it. And that's on March 13th during the day. And then if you stay afterwards, we have, I think we're up to 12 teams are going to compete in Rocket League for this huge trophy that we just got. And so you'll actually get to see some gameplay and get to actually see the excitement, but even better, if you start talking to the kids, it might change your life. Some of the stories of the kids, people who say I was shy in school, or I can't see myself playing football or basketball or any traditional sport, but this is what I do. And the thing that's really touching, we were going to show the Microsoft video, is that some of these kids have disabilities, either physically or sometimes learning disabilities, but they see esports as their equalizer. So even though I may be, my hand is not like everyone else's, I can have a special controller and compete against my classmates, and I'm not looked at as lesser than. And so it's those sorts of stories that have been mind-opening and life-changing for me. So that's a great opportunity. And then we wanted to, in May, we're having that Build Your Brand competition. So as we're supporting clubs, we're challenging them to go do all those things Ashley just talked about. And that's being supported by local businesses and colleges who are going to serve as judges and people to provide feedback and insights to the kids as they go out there and they do this. And ultimately, we're saying that kids are trying to do some of these things on their own, and they're starting to do a lot of these things on their own. And our really conversation is, what better way to bring them into the school and provide them with some guidance, and also to make some connections. So the reason why you're in ELA, you're learning how to read and write, is so that when you go to talk about esports, or you go to write your blog or write your review, you actually do it in a way that sounds correct and sounds good. And so we're trying to help teachers make those individual connections, and it ranges. Some schools already have clubs, they're doing that. Some teachers are just dipping their toes in this by allowing a kid to create a world, like a social studies class. You're talking about ancient Egypt. Well, instead of just do your Tramo poster you do every year, now support a kid in creating a Minecraft ancient Egyptian world, or to do it in CoSpace's EDU. And so those are what the conversations are like. It's a lot.
You could also view it in Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
The varsity developed it. I thought that was amazing.
Yes. So lots of different angles. So just our time left. Questions, comments, ideas, thoughts? Anyone doing any of this?
So I guess my first question is, how do you get over the stigma of first-person shooters?
Yeah, I would, so my honest route, and I'm having success in this, is do not start with the first-person shooters. That's why Rocket League is up there. Rocket League, for those of you who don't know, how many of you know what Rocket League is? So for those of you who don't know, Rocket League, it's a game where you drive like a rally car, or it could be, there's lots of different vehicles. You drive a car into basically a big soccer ball, and you have to knock it in the net. So essentially you're playing soccer, but you're driving a car. Car games are kind of fun. Soccer's kind of fun. You mix it together.
You get boosts and different things in there.
Yeah, and so we started with that. It's teen, it's very few violence, which is funny when I showed the video of it. Someone was like, well, the car just blew up. Isn't that violence? And I'm like, I was like so deflated when it happened. But so we're starting with that, and then what actually starts to happen is the club starts to grow, and you introduce the schools to colleges, and you hear the college say like, well, we're playing Overwatch, and so some schools are starting to dip their toe into that because the boards of directors are seeing there is an actual pathway, and if the colleges are recruiting kids who are playing at home and not the ones that are playing in schools, they're starting to realize like maybe something wrong with us. So I would say start with something soft, and then introduce the colleges in there and stick to what the colleges play. And then maybe somewhere in the future you could take another step there. And that's happening in our county for sure.
So what about privacy?
So remember when I started off and I said we're supporting live events? That's why. So we've worked with a local a local firm, a local firm, and they've given us guidance to what that should look like. And the safest way is the live events. Schools are dipping outside of that and doing some online play. That's fine. It's okay for some more exposure because if you think of it as like a football game, like I can go to a football game and I know, hey, that kid, what grade he's in. So some of those things aren't problematic. The big issues with online play is what the kids say to each other or potentially type to each other is actually the more scary part for schools, and not so much the public viewing of it. And so we've been working with lawyers to make sure that we support schools along the way with that as well.
So along the same lines, how do you handle the user names or profiles? Are those controlled by the school, or is that for individual kids or their families to control those usernames and accounts?
Yeah, it's varied. The lawyers would like the schools to control that. The kids are saying, hey, I like to build my data and my stats. If I play Rocket League 100 times, I want all that to be together. So right now, that's what a lot of schools are doing. The lawyers aren't saying that's necessarily bad at this point. Their recommendation is for the school to have some control in a just-in-case situation. But a lot of kids are having their own accounts if they already have them, and some schools are buying kids' accounts. For our local tournament, we purchase all the Rocket League accounts, and we're requiring students for this live tournament to play on our accounts. For two reasons. A, it's safer, because that's what we heard the lawyers say, it's a safe thing to do. And we've convinced the kids to do that because for speed of play. By the time a new team comes on to play and they log out, the log back in is going to take too long. So we've convinced them for logistical purposes just use our accounts. But it's going both ways, the recommendations for schools.
I'm curious how schools have handled when students have already been playing these games and they're getting started, they're forming these clubs, and the students come in erasing some of the bad behavior that exists when the kids are doing it on their own. So for example, how you treat other players, different things that you say, or even in-game gestures.
Sportsmanship.
Really inappropriate.
You can relate that right back to any other sportsmanship.
So I would say that's definitely true. So you have your same policies. The other thing I would go back to is if you have this presentation, that first company, NASEF, who really inspired me. I really like what they do. They have a lot of money to support esports. They, if you sign up your club through NASEF, you get free resources. You get access to your coaches for webinars, and they have a series of webinars on trainings on how to handle that. And one of the things, like I laugh about when I see like their topics, they have one thing called troll management.
Yep.
So. And it's funny you laugh about that. That's an actual thing that you have to think about in this world. Like, how do you manage trolls? I feel like a lot of adults need some troll management skills, to be honest, in today's world.
I mean, that ties way back into the career skills and your FPL. So you've got an excellent, connection there for esports.
But So yeah, as coaches, I like NASAF because once you have a coach, you can say, here's where you get trained on how to do this. And then they also have, all three of those companies have codes of conduct books that you can use. So we've used a combination of like a NASAF and high school esports to make our own code of conduct for any tournaments we host. We make all the players and the GM sign it. That kind of says if you do any of these things that are wrong, like you get kicked out, blah, 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 blah. So it's good to be a part of those big companies because they have so many resources to boost you along the way instead of trying to create stuff on your own.
Yeah, so, I mean, do you think some of this is just us not understanding and doing things that are overly cautious? And I'm only asking because, like, this is the same thing that's encountered with any other sport. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do if I got kids on a football field talking trash to each other
Oh, yeah.
and we can hear about it? Or what do I do if there's a troll in the stands heckling the players? You know, like,
Happens all the time.
it's all kind of the same thing, right? So as a school, if I get parental permission
Yeah.
from the kids who are participating in Overwatch or League of Legends, both games that are a little bit violent,
Yeah.
don't you think that probably covers us as long as we are providing guidance and talking to kids and saying, hey, look man, you can't talk like that to other players, and
Yeah.
because you did, you're suspended
Yes.
for 2 weeks from practice or you know, just like you would do with anything else.
It's exactly the same. I think the adults are scared, rightfully so, because I think more things are recorded.
Sure.
And I think, like I was saying, I say to people, like I played football, high school and college, I coached in high school. If you actually knew what those teenagers on the field said to each other during a football game, football may come to an end in this country because some of the things that are said are that horrific, honestly. So it's really the same within esports. It probably one culture comes from another. It's the same kid, same sorts of kids. It's just that sometimes things are recorded or typed out, and now it becomes a lot more concrete versus a he said, she said. So I think that kind of scares people, but you're right.
So do you get any advice from your solicitors about that? Like I hear you when you talk about you hosting an entire tournament. I think that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But from your solicitors, if you're a school who just wants to have a club or a team,
Yeah.
if you get parental permission, like do you feel like legally that's that's okay?
Yeah, that's exactly okay. The biggest thing that came out of our last solicitor update was to make sure that we're up to date on the terms of agreement per each video game. Because that part is a little tricky. Because a lot of the video games essentially say, hey, your kid's going to put this data in this video game and we're going to sell it for a lot of money.
Yeah.
Do you agree? One reason.
So kind of like expanded Coco, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was actually the biggest thing. Everyone was like, oh, so actually I'm assigned to now go through terms of agreements and provide some guidance and some clip notes for our schools on what they say. But we've done that for like a Rocket League already, and that's why we're so, like, this one is a good one. But we're also to the point to say you don't actually have to use real data. Like, you can use a generic account, so the question over here earlier, which is why it all makes it safer if you kind of put that barrier between students. But there's this weird thing that happens. Like, I was at our curriculum meeting and superintendent's there, and one of the assistant superintendents was like, I don't know, it makes me anxious, I don't quite understand it. He's like, so I don't know if I'm ready yet to do this for a school. But my son plays Fortnite all the time, and I'm like, so you allow your own son to do this all by himself, but everyone else's kids is like, oh, I don't know. So it's like this weird thing where I think we're generally okay with it, like, because a lot of parents
it's a
are
new
doing
norm.
that. It's a
new norm that we haven't just figured out yet.
Yep.
And I mean, I've played these games for years and years. I mean, it's not new to me, but I already know I've got very conservative parents that are like, no. Whether you're shooting a Tylenol or a 50 cal, they're still shooting.
Bad.
The act of shooting is what they see.
Yeah. True, yes.
How do you run practices? You said that you wanted your live games, not online playing, but you're watching practices online against other people. How's that work?
So we're allowing to local control, however you want to do that. If you want to have your kids stay after and they practice live, great. A lot of schools are encouraging the kids to practice on their own. they're like, hey, you guys are already playing this video game. If you're on this team, you could go home and practice. So it varies from school to school. Most of the schools I know of are supporting or allowing their kids to practice on their own. And then when they have club, they're going over like game plans, what they need to practice. They go over those sorts of things. And then when they get home, after they do their homework, they practice.
Are there any techniques for preventing a scenario where you say, okay, we have the new esports club, and a dozen or two boys all sign up, and then a girl who might be interested looks at it and says, oh, but that's a club for boys, and then she just loses interest.
Thank you for bringing that up. So that was that ecosystem model. I think you have to start with that, and I think when you introduce a club, I think you have to be very specific about partnering within your own school. So if you know you're going to have this element where kids are designing websites, or this element to where they're going to design the graphic logos and such, I think it's important to work with like your art teacher. It's important to try to pull in the right people to recruit students to be a part of it, and don't just hope that the girls sign up. Like, you're going to have to go get them, and that's what we like to start with that. Like, all right, you're going to start this club. Here's what it should look like. Now, how do you bring in like everyone, and just don't allow this to be an all-boys club, which is an issue with esports. But I think this is new, so we have an opportunity to do our due diligence around Title IX before someone else tells us to do that. And that was actually another solicitor point. The whole Title IX piece around it's just an all-boys thing, and I think that club model helps to reduce that. And there are girls who play too, so. That's another angle, and so we're advising teams or clubs to have like multiple teams. So like the Rocket League thing is 3-on-3. Well, we're saying, well, if you're a local school, you can have 5 teams play. Like, you can have a team that's one's all boys, one's all girls, one's mixed. Like, it's a whole new world. We don't need to bring in the old rules to this new world. So we've been really promoting that sort of let's go out and get kids, and so it's a learning. We'll probably have some failures, which we'll have to learn from. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to check, follow up on the having kids play on their own.
Yes. Yeah.
Any conversations about what that happens to look like if there's a coach or an adult who is trying to help the kids progress? Like, what if they're playing with them, or what kind of, I mean, I know we have a social media policy about that for our athletic coaches, and it's very strict because, as we all know, that's an issue. So from a school standpoint, do you have any thoughts, or have you encountered anything on what do you do to make sure that coaches can facilitate that improvement without getting any trouble?
I can address that a little bit. At Tamako, we just started our own program, and our policy is that we can, when we are in school, we use school accounts. So, like, I'm Coach 1, and Coach 1 is friends with Raider 1 through Raider 25, and so when they're at school, we can play with them, but they will not know our gamer tags. We will never know their gamer tags unless they share it. But we like, our policy is we are not going to friend any of their individual things. If they post something on Twitter, or not Twitter, on Twitch or on YouTube, like we can then analyze their play from there, and we can help them out through that, but we will not play with them outside of school.
So could you see a scenario where, because I get the kids want their stats and their data too, like, could you see a scenario where that works with the kids?
We
having their own gaming games, with the coach having one that is specific to the school?
We've thought about that. The issue that we had was that we're a fairly low income district, so only about half of them had money to buy accounts. So because of that, we just told them, like, you are free to play however you want at home, and luckily with Overwatch, like, there's no progression really. And they can, like, take pictures of their rankings and things like that. But at school, when they're playing with school, they're using school accounts at all times. We're part of High School Esports League, and there's a spot on their registration when they sign up to register for high school esports. They can actually put their own information on. So when colleges scout and look at that, they can see their their stuff, but when they're playing, they're officially registered with our accounts.
That's actually
Great, thank you.
so. How are colleges looking at this if they're scouting? Like, because obviously they should have a portfolio of some sort.
The
So
league,
just-
like
just through-
high school esports league, has specific college scouting parameters that they're.
So just like kind of like Puddle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kids are also making their own tapes,
Mhm.
right? Just
That's
you
the
were a
other one.
football player. Hey,
Yeah.
here's me,
That's what they-
knocking
yeah.
some
They
guys
about
down.
that.
Well, here's me doing this awesome thing on a video game.
Yeah.
And it is 3:30, so I just want to say as you leave, thank you for taking the time to talk esports with me. Feel free to stay. I do this all day. I've learned something. new
Does
all the
that
time.
league cost anything to be a part of?
Yeah, it does. Say like $30 per season.
Is that per seat? Okay.
So right now we're registering with the JV University plus like some alternates, and but if you get over 40 participants, then it's a flat fee for
Okay.
so